We are live on YouTube
Some of us are live, some of us are dead.
because that's that's what we do. We go
hmm
live or
hmm
die. What? What? Who? What?
Yes, it's even telling me media is now streaming live on YouTube. Oh, this Zoom chat is so cute.
Oh, the Zoom chat is beautiful, I believe.
It's basically telling me hi, hi, hi.
It's telling you hi, hi, hi.
We're gonna get high, high, high. I don't remember the next line. Shit.
Ah, you know.
Not surprisingly, the BBC banned that particular Paul McCartney and Wink song. Um, I don't think I have to explain why.
No, no, you're good. You're good.
I mean, they thought they were probably going to get away with it because they didn't spell it High, 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 high. They spelled it Hi, high, high, high. But yeah, again, the chorus was "We're going to get high, high, high" till the midnight sun or something like that. I think so. I mean, obviously, it was pretty
Okay,
obvious what they were talking about. So
I gotcha. So, how are you, everyone in podcast world? It is
hello in TB land.
it is 14 days. 14 days to WrestleMania 40, the biggest WrestleMania of all time in that city of Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, we're going down to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah, gonna get in the ring. We're gonna hook up. We're gonna grapple. And gonna get it on.
And we're going to make sure we eat our protein in our good old Slim Jims before the match with a couple Miller Lights. There we go.
And then somebody else will be all like, "If there's any ladies between 18 and 34 who want to come down to the Marriott." I can't really do my Flair impression unless I'm screaming, and I don't want to scream right now for a couple of reasons. So
Well, then don't scream. You
yeah,
don't have to scream. No, no.
my
No, don't have
my
to.
throat my throat's been a little sore since yesterday, and I'm just tired. So yeah, it's like the Flair impression ain't gonna work right now.
No, I understand the sickness. Nico is sick. He has strep throat. Got
Ugh,
that diagnosis on Thursday. Yep.
always fun.
So I mean the only good thing about it is he's on his spring break this coming week. So, he doesn't have to go to school, so he's good with that. So just take it day by day, take his medicine and go from there. But yeah, man. I kind of like I'm distracted as people can see in the back of my left shoulder. Well, I don't know how people see. Yeah, my left shoulder.
It's your left shoulder, but like it's, because of course I'm looking at you, it's on the
Yeah.
right side. But
People could watch basketball behind me because the way my TV is angled with the curio cabinet glass over there. It's kind of interesting. But
it, that actually
I,
reminds me of the time I was in my car driving somewhere. It was in summer, and I noticed that like as when I glanced up in the rearview mirror, I could see like the reflection of the road in my sunglasses. So for, maybe a block or so, I said, okay, let's drive by looking at the reflection of my sunglasses in the rearview mirror, not at through the windshield. And let's see before that gets dangerous. And it didn't take very long. So
yeah, yeah, it's not something you really want to do per se, but
it also reminds me of something I saw on Rooster Teeth years ago, R.I.P. Rooster Teeth, um, where they rigged up like a car. So I think they were emulating GTA. Like I don't want to say specifically GTA 3 but just like that general series of GTA games.
mhm.
So it's like the camera that you would normally see if you were playing the game when you steal a car and you're driving the car, how like the camera's kind of right behind the car.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so they rigged it up so that they had like a camera hooked to the back of the car so it would give like the same camera angle, and they like blacked out the windshield. Uh and they hooked up like a computer monitor with like the camera shot,
So they're
and
driving the
they were on
car with a
they were
computer monitor from a shot from behind.
right. They were on a closed course. So it wasn't like they were doing this in traffic or anything.
I still want to do
And
that.
the whole thing was to see how well they could drive like on this like obstacle course by only using like that camera angle. So as if they were playing a game. And like the guys were just like cracking up because they knew they were doing horribly. They could hear themselves like running over the cones and stuff. So yeah, it's like yes, it is something that, it works in a video game. It does not work in reality. As
Not all
you
the
know,
time. Not all the
yes,
time.
as I'm sure everybody expected, of course, but it was still a pretty funny video to watch. But that's when Rooster Teeth was still good. From what I understand, their last several years were not exactly something to follow.
No, no. Sometimes you try to recreate that stuff. It doesn't always work, like it does in an actual video game. So, you know, but it's cool how they, do closed courses and do stuff like that. Like I always like watching Mythbusters and all the shit they used to do. It was fun to watch stuff like that. It was always good.
But yes, NCAA tournament in full swing.
Yes. You know what? I filled out two brackets. Honestly, it's all I did. Um, I picked a God, I can't talk today. I have picked a couple of the upsets that have happened, and there was a couple upsets I did not pick. But, you know, it's due of the course, running the course of the upsets here and there. But
Yeah,
I think the
uh
I think the biggest thing was the game we saw this evening, which was Oakland and NC State. Both those teams upset bids in the first round to play each other in the second round, and NC State came out and won in overtime. Um,
yes,
I
I had most of the second half of that game on. It looked like it was a nice, fun back and forth game. The kind of game that
it was,
if you don't have a rooting interest in it, you can really sit there and just watch and enjoy for the sake of the game.
yeah,
But it's also the kind of game that if you have a rooting interest in it, is just gonna be like, driving you insane in like about six different ways because
yes,
it was back and forth, it was up and down, so it's a game where it's like, like both teams go on like little runs and and everything like that. So it's very much the kind of game where you just go like you're like, oh no, yeah, 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 no, no. So yeah, again, if
yeah.
you have a
It
rooting interest in it, like you if you and, like you had like a habit of biting your nails, you probably might not have any fingers left at the end of the game.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch. No, absolutely. I don't have no horse in the race on that one. NC State is a local college for me where I live in North Carolina, but I guess I was semi kind of rooting for them a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm just watching a game. I don't it's besides my specific team, I don't really root against or for teams anymore like I kind of used to. Like there's maybe a handful of teams, and those are just the teams I really don't like altogether. But overall, I just watch to watch. I just have fun watching basketball, in regards
Yeah,
to that.
I mean,
So
last year I didn't have to worry because I had no rooting interest because Carolina missed the tournament. This year, of course, I'm very much in it, and they were not looking good in the first, I want to say 7 or 8 minutes of that game today. It was like Michigan State was just like not missing shots, and then Carolina was they were they had like three or four in a row bad offensive possessions where like they like came down and they took like the first shot that they could see, and all but one of them were like bad shots.
yeah,
Like they weren't open, the guys in their face, they weren't high percentage shots. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with them? And then I changed the channel. I don't remember what I put on. I just changed the channel. When I came back on, they had cut the deficit from 12 to like 2. and then they kind of took control from there. And then like they were up nine at halftime. Like it was 26-14 at one point, Michigan State. And at halftime it was 40-31 Carolina. So like from that point where they were down 12, they outscored them 26-5 the remainder of the half, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, they did.
because Michigan State started missing shots, Carolina started playing their game and everything like that. Um, and then it got close in like the first few minutes of the second half again. Like I think Michigan State cut it to as few as three, I want to say, but I don't think they got any closer than that. And then
Yeah, it was three or four, and then North Carolina kind of like,
Carolina just kind of gradually pulled away again, and they had a
yeah,
fairly comfortable lead for most of the second half of the second half. So it wasn't a game that you had to sweat because they were making the big deal of it, and it's true. And you can like the Tom Izzo's got, I think they said 17 wins in the NCAA tournament when Michigan State is the lower seed,
yeah,
and that's something that our dear friend AJ and I have had many discussions about how Michigan State seems to have a tendency to do better in the tournament when they have lowered expectations, like when they're not like one of like a 1, 2, or 3 seed kind of thing.
yeah.
Like if
They
they're
usually do.
like like if they fly under the radar a little bit more, they seem to do better than when they're um like expected to go far. And of course, the irony of that is the one and only time they won it. Well, okay, not the one and only time. Well, under Tom Izzo, the one and only time they won a national championship, they were a 1 seed.
Yeah.
So that was, for those of you who don't remember how long ago that was, I was still in college at Notre Dame. So that was,
That was
2000 or
yeah, I was gonna say
2001.
like yeah, 2001 wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, it was half a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. Speaking of coaches, before we got on, so you're talking about the coach of Virginia, and whatnot. What do you think? Um, Calipari was scrutinized pretty hard by the sports media after their first round loss to Oakland. Um,
Well, I mean,
what are
things
your
like that, I
thoughts on
think.
that? I have a few.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say anything with any kind of concrete value because I freely admit I have not followed college basketball to the extent that I once did. Um, and as anything, I'm going to blame that on the pandemic. Um, I just think that with the way, and that's happened to me with I think with a lot of sports really. Like it just everything that happened around that time just kind of made me go sports. Yeah, whatever. So okay, yeah. Um, North Carolina hasn't really been what you could describe as an elite team consistently since their last national championship win, which was 7 years ago now. But no, so I don't follow college basketball to the extent that I used to, just for any number of reasons, really. Um, so I don't know if Calipari's doing like a good or bad job anymore. It seems like he's still getting recruits. It seems like he's still working the system, but like, I gotta hold on. I want to check something in my little NCAA file that I keep here real quick.
The statistician over here.
Well, okay, so this is the second time in 3 years that they've lost in the first round.
Correct.
2 years ago they lost in the first round as a 2 seed. They were the first victim of the magical run of St. Peter's.
Yes, they're 1-4 in the last five tournaments.
Yeah, I was going to say they lost in the second round last year, but they were only a 6 seed. So second round is where you're supposed to lose if you're a 6 seed. Um, but so yeah, when you suffer two bad first round losses in 3 years, losing to a 15 seed and then losing to a 14 seed, you're definitely going to get scrutiny as far as, has he lost his touch? You know, and it's like, and we all know that while upsets from 13, 14, 15, and now we have to add in 16 since it's happened twice,
Yeah.
seeds are still pretty rare. Um, and sometimes they can just be very fluky too, you know. But it is going to draw some attention, and especially when it happens to you twice in 3 years, even though players are different and everything like that. Because it's like, how can you be losing to these teams? How can you lose to a team from the Metro Atlantic Conference, which is, I'm pretty sure that's where St. Peter's is. How can you lose to a team from the Horizon League, which wasn't even the best team in the Horizon League? You know,
No.
that kind of stuff too. So I don't really know if he deserves any scrutiny or not. Obviously, he's getting up there now too. He's been doing this a while. So it is going to start making whispers at the very least. Has he lost his touch? Is it time for a change? Somebody else, should have the job now. I have no idea if anybody who's like a higher up at Kentucky even has somebody in mind. I don't know of, obviously it's going to be a high profile job that would attract a lot of attention from a lot of people, but I don't know of any like rising assistants or guys from smaller schools who are like hot commodities all of a sudden. Because like we were discussing right before we went on, the guy who's the Florida Atlantic coach is now going to become the coach at Michigan.
Yep.
um, it's debatable as to whether or not you consider Michigan truly a high profile job in basketball,
To the
because
power
while they,
conference, so it's going to be
yeah, their
appealing
power
anywhere.
conference, and Florida Atlantic, of course, it's not in the AAC. Um, but Michigan, of course, is always still going to be a football school first. I mean, that's not saying that they like neglect their basketball program. It's not like, say, uh, well, I'll just say Penn State, because Penn State very rarely are they putting out good, decent basketball teams. I
True.
couldn't really think of it. I couldn't really think of a better example off the top of my head. Um, but so yeah, I don't know if there's any other guy who's like, from like a mid-major program or like a AAC or Mountain West school who might be out there who people are saying like, oh, there's the next guy to go take a high-profile Power Five job. Whoa, geez, I just thought of something. We're not gonna be able to call it Power Five much longer, are we?
No, it'll be a power four.
Yeah, it's gonna be Power Four. So it's funny because I saw that Washington State and Oregon State are going to be playing with the West Coast Conference for at least the next 2 years in basketball, but they still intend to rebuild the Pac-12, and I just don't see
I
how that's
don't
going
know
to
how they're
happen.
going to do that.
Um, yeah, there just aren't the teams. I mean,
Unless they get teams for the smaller conferences to come to the Pac-12, and that's just going to make the Pac-12 weak, and they're not going to be back in the Power Five.
yeah,
There'll
but
still
the
be a
problem
Power
is,
Four.
yeah, the problem is too, it's like unless you're taking the teams that currently play in the Mountain West, you don't have football schools. So
Yeah.
I don't think, Gonzaga and St. Mary's and the other schools in the West Coast Conference, I don't think they have football even at the FCS level. So, yeah, but anyway, so I've rambled for a while. So, yeah, what's your take on Calipari?
So I brought this up to AJ the other day when we talked about it. And Kentucky, I watched 9 or 10 of their games this year. Um, so I think the biggest thing for me, I think Calipari is kind of in the Nick Saban lane, where if you look at his roster this year, they had 11 freshmen, but
It's a lot.
several five-star recruits. And unfortunately, honestly, in this day and age with the transfer portal, five-star recruits is not going to cut it like it did before. You're not going to take five-star recruits and be winning national championships or going to consecutive Final Fours. The transfer portal is pretty much taken that away. Now
Yep.
he did have a good transfer the other year. I'm gonna fuck up this guy's name. Shuiwe. I don't know how to say it. But he was like National Player of the Year a couple years ago. I think he won National Player of the Year. I don't remember. But very, very good transfer portal recruit for them. And I think they've done a couple other ones, but I don't think those others have really panned out to be stars for Kentucky. So the gist of it is he really needs to, he's still stuck on, getting 5-star recruits is fine because you'll get away with that during the season because of your schedule. You'll struggle a little bit in your conference schedule, but your non-conference schedule, you'll be able to get away with that a lot easier than in your conference schedule. It'll be a little tougher. But he's just going to need to learn if he wants to. If he wants to keep his job or if he doesn't care, I mean, it's just a fact he's going to need to learn to dip into that transfer portal a little bit more, unfortunately. And the other thing too is, you know, some of these transfer portal guys, they're I call them vets. They're veterans, and some of these guys are, you know, doing their 4 years, but taking their 5th year senior because of the pandemic and all that, because a lot of them are still eligible for that extra season. A lot of them are doing that too, playing that extra season to try to get their product up. If they don't go to the NBA, to go to the Euro basketball or whatever the case may be. So, they'll do something else, but they're just kind of get their stock up. So like a lot of these teams Kentucky's going against in the tournament, I think most of them have been way older than them too, and more experience. And when it comes to the big dance, that's kind of like what it is now. You're seeing a lot of experienced teams and a lot of transfer, players being prominent stars on the teams they're going to. So, some of these other schools are grooming these players, and then, you know, it's kind of like they've gone to transfer portal to get to another program that's going to have a better chance of making the tournament. And that's really what you're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, Carolina, I know has, I'm not saying like they've had to use the transfer portal, but they've used the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Carolina's had a couple of decently ranked recruits the last couple of years who ultimately decommitted and went elsewhere. They had the guy Gigi Jackson who was committed, who then decommitted, reclassified up a year, and went to South Carolina. And then they had this guy Simeon Wilcher who was supposed to be coming in this year. He ends up decommitting and goes to fucking St. John's and Patino of all goddamn places.
Oh, I saw that. But didn't you have a guy last year, freshman Love, who went in the transfer portal after the season and it plays for
Well, yeah,
Arizona?
yeah, Caleb Love, yeah, and
Or Love, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That kind of baffled me when I heard that one. I'm like, why is he in the transfer portal? Like, why did he choose?
yeah, I didn't understand why he left either, but it was like as AJ reminded me when we were on the phone earlier, um, he was supposed to go to Michigan,
Yep, I remember that.
and then he changed his mind and he went to Arizona, and it's like, wow, good decision, as things turned out, of course. So, um, yeah, but it's like,
He probably would
for
have been in the transfer portal again if you went to Michigan.
yeah, so it's like I'm just like looking at Carolina's roster here. They have at least two guys who are um big contributors, Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram, who were both transfer portal guys. Ryan came from Notre Dame, Ingram came from Stanford, I think it was.
Yeah.
So they be and like a couple years ago, one of the big contributors on that team that was, the 8 seed that went to the national title game was Brady Manick, and he had been a transfer in from Oklahoma. So it's like they've used the transfer portal fairly decently in these few years where it's become such a huge part of the process, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Not just about
and
recruiting now, man. It's about
yeah,
getting you recruit, you get your 4 or 5-star recruits, and then it's transfer portal time. And Illinois has used it pretty well. Like Underwood's
yeah,
he's gotten some good, freshman recruits, 4 stars, but at the end of the day, you got to supplement them with some veteran players, and that's what the
yeah.
portals he's
It's
using it for.
it seems to be kind of the nature of the beast now, and that's I mean, well, obviously we know that, and we've seen it in football too, of course. But they were making mention of that during the broadcast of the Carolina Michigan State game, where they mentioned Carolina has used the transfer portal, Michigan State has not really, is what they said.
Yeah,
And
Izzo's
it's like as
another
far as
one where
I
he's reluctant to use it.
yeah, and as far as I know, Izzo still recruits pretty well, and why shouldn't he? Um, but I think I remember the first few years of true NFL free agency. So we're talking like 1993, 4, 5, right?
The early 90s. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I always want to say it was like either after like the 92 or the 93 season. I don't remember which one. And it was like the big thing that I always remember as being like the big first like mega free agency move was when Reggie White left the Eagles to sign the Packers. And the ironic part about that too was that the Eagles had franchised him. And in those first few years, teams weren't afraid to sign a franchise player from another team. Now it's like you get franchised, that means you're going back, or you get traded. Like
Yeah.
what happened, with Brian Burns, example. Carolina franchised him and ends up trading him to the Giants.
Yep.
Uh, which very anxious to see how that's going to work out. I think it's
He's a
going to
good
work out
player.
well.
He's definitely a
Yeah,
good player.
yeah, yeah. So,
Absolutely.
I actually respected the Giants for pulling that off, especially because like supposedly last year the Rams offered the Panthers 2 first-round picks for Burns, and the Panthers said no, and the Giants acquired him for a second, a fifth, and like a fourth or fifth round pick swap. So it was like ridiculously cheap as far as like the draft capital. Now they gave a big contract, of course, but uh, you know, but he's still young enough that I think he'll earn that money. So, but anyway, the first few years of like the true NFL free agency, George Young was still the Giants general manager, and George Young is in the Hall of Fame now. Unfortunately, they didn't induct him until after he had died. And George Young deserved a shit ton of credit for the way that he helped resurrect the Giants as a franchise in the early 80s. He was like the guy who was kind of responsible for, Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick as coaches and drafting Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms and, a lot of other moves that they made. Like, I think people sometimes forget it now, but the Giants did have a lot of good personnel in those years, like guys like Carl Banks and Leonard Marshall too, and Joe Morris before he got hurt and everything. But when free agency came around, I think the game had kind of passed George Young by, unfortunately. And it may have also passed Wellington Mara by because the Giants just basically refused to dip their toes into the free agency pool. Like they just didn't sign free agents from other teams. And they were losing guys, you know.
Oh yeah.
And if they were taking the mentality like, you got to build through the draft, it's like that's great, you do. And of course, now it's like 30 years later here, we've cycled back to it's like, yeah, you still the philosophy seems to be yes, you do need to get your best players through the draft because of contract situations as well. You get them on the cheap, affordable rookie contracts. Especially if you get the quarterback on the rookie contract, then you can build a team around him for a few years and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And he used free agency to supplement and everything. But the first years of free agency, though, it was like, no, you must sign free agents to compete. But the Giants were like, no, we're just going to build through the draft. And the problem was, if you go back and you look at the Giants drafts in those like years in the mid '90s, most of them sucked. They
I
got
know.
very, they
There's
got
several Bears
very,
ones that suck too.
yeah, they got very few impact players those years. Their first round picks were like 3 years in a row. Like 1993, they didn't have a first round pick because they had taken Dave Brown in the supplemental draft in 1992, and Dave Brown always sucked. 1994, they took Thomas Lewis, a wide receiver from Indiana, who was hurt a lot. 1995, they took Tyrone Wheatley, and then that never worked for whatever reason. 1996, I'll never forget the 1996 draft. The Giants picked fifth. There were four guys who were projected to be early draft picks. And I said, one of them's going to fall to the Giants, and I'll be happy with any of them. Those four guys were Keyshawn Johnson, Simeon Rice, Kevin Hardy, and Jonathan Ogden. I said, one of those four guys is going to fall to the Giants because one of the first four picks is going to be Lawrence Phillips.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work out that way. Johnson, Rice, Hardy. No, Johnson, Hardy, Rice, Ogden went 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think Ogden was the guy I think I really wanted. Actually, I probably wanted Simeon Rice the most because he was, pass rusher, extraordinaire.
Yeah.
So, Um, so I'm like, what are the Giants going to do? And the Giants did the typical Giants thing. They reached. They took Cedric Jones, defensive end from Oklahoma, who they could have drafted at least 5 to 10 picks later.
Yeah.
So as soon as everybody goes off the board in front of them, and this is not a situation where I was really critical of them for not trying to like trade up to make sure they got the guy they wanted kind of situation, which they have been burned on in recent years. Like supposedly like they were waiting for Devontae Smith to fall to them and the Eagles trade up ahead of them to draft him and everything. But it's like, okay, so once that happens and it's like you just stand pat because you don't. And again, I don't know if they tried to make a trade. I don't know if anybody was anxious to try to trade up for them. I don't remember. Phillips ended up going six. I don't remember who went, say, like 7 through 12 or so. So, like, I don't know if there
Yeah.
was like somebody that anybody thought that they desperately had to trade up for or anything. But it was like, still, it was the most Giants thing in the world to just sit there and wait for the draft to happen to you instead of being proactive.
Ooh.
And I think that
Yeah.
was kind of like my last straw kind of thing where it's like they need a change in regime. And it wasn't long after that that George Young left the franchise and worked in the league office for the last few years of his career. And then Ernie Accorsi took over as the GM. And Accorsi, while he was still slightly trained by Young, even though he had been a GM on his own before, he started modernizing a few things. He wasn't afraid to trade in the draft. He wasn't afraid to go sign free agents. And
Which you had to do.
the Giants started the Giants were a lot more competitive than the next few years than they had been the previous few years. So um, yeah, but it's like, yeah, you can't. There comes a time where whether you disagree with the way things are done, you have to accept that that's the way things are done now. And just because you think that it's a bad way of doing things or it's not the right way of doing things, doesn't mean that's the way everybody else is going to think. And that's who you're freaking competing against.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to play the game.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of great coaches, a lot of coaches are still struggling with that,
Yeah,
in football and in basketball, the transfer portal. And I think the NIL is more prevalent in football than it is in basketball.
yes, it
Um,
definitely is. Even though
so
I saw Caitlin Clark in a commercial today.
yeah,
Good for
I
her.
mean,
Good for
you
her.
know, she's got to be the highest paid like fucking college player right now. If the it for NIL, if she isn't, I'm super surprised. Because
Yeah,
she's making bank. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of having to keep up with the Joneses, unfortunately. And some of these coaches, you're gonna see them struggle a little bit till they kind of figure it out or accept it. And I think Saban was at the point where, I just keep hearing more interviews with him where, what was it, the interview where he talks about his wife? They always have like everyone in for the picnic, the players or recruits or whatever. And
hmm
she made a comment to him, why are we still doing this? He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, when she talks to the parents, all they're worried about is how much money they're getting. You know what I mean? Like from NIL and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
it's
and
you see it and it's understandable because the NIL is what the NIL is. So it's going
yeah,
to be brought up in that manner, but it does take away, some of what you're used to doing as far as like trying not, you know, you're coaching these kids, but you're also trying to, teach them another ways to be, respectable, prominent young men,
yeah,
in in the world. And be respectful, things like that, that all that stuff, which is still needed for these young kids, no matter what, how much money they're making. They need to be humbled and still be respectful in that manner. So it does
yeah,
take away, for some of these coaches who are used to doing stuff like that for years upon years. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. He's not going to get fired though. Calipari's not going to get fired. He's just going to have to rethink his recruiting and his transfer portal recruiting and start tweaking stuff and see where it goes. The other thing too, this is a this is a great thing.
I. agree.
Now, I guess LeBron James has a is friended one of the players from Duquesne's from some camps or whatever. So I guess he sent the team like, his sneakers. And I was like, oh, just a more for the Illini to beat them while they're wearing those ugly ass sneakers. But that's just me being a LeBron hater in that aspect. But I
Yeah,
think
no,
Illinois should be okay. They're up 77 to 52 right now.
yeah, that would take a pretty epic collapse to lose when you're up 23 points with 7 minutes to go. Tennessee's up 2 points on Texas with 4 seconds to go here, but Tennessee's got the ball. So, but yeah, it's like I saw some of the comments that Saban made, and I had mixed feelings about them. On one hand, yes, I can understand, look, the system's always been one way, now it's changed, and yeah, like you have like you're hearing different things from recruits now and everything, and I can understand how that can get frustrating and this, that, and the other thing. But
Hmm.
God forbid these kids want to get compensated for what they're doing. And
Yeah.
I know there's still always going to be that old school mentality, and I used to be of this mindset as well. They're getting a free education. Yes, but from some of the things that we've seen in the last, I want to say, decade or so, look at some of the scandals that have been out there. Remember the North Carolina football scandal
Yep.
where these kids were getting credit for writing papers that wouldn't have been acceptable in fifth grade,
Yep.
shit
Horrible.
like that. So it's like, are they actually getting a free education or are they just being basically rubber stamped so they maintain their eligibility and everything? So it's
Yes.
like there's only so much of that I can really like, and that's the kind of the thing how though these are some of the things that helped evolve my own feelings on this position because I was always very much of the I don't these kids shouldn't get paid mentality. But when you see scandals like that, and especially when their excuse is they're getting a free education, it's like, no, they're really not if they're allowed to do. And again, I'm using just that one example, Carolina and everything. But it's like, if that's what they were doing, I mean, the school is obviously doing that. They're complicit in it. They're rubber stamping it. So they're not doing their end of the bargain of giving these kids an education, you know?
Of
So
course.
yeah, it's like, all right, I understand. It's like, and I still get the attitude. It was like, you're not entitled to anything. You're not entitled to NIL money. You have to earn that too.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, if
That's all about star power, man. NIL is
right,
star power.
and it's like that's the way I think maybe you got to adapt your recruiting pitch. Like, well, you come play for me, you're going to have a much better opportunity to get some of that NIL money than if you go to them. You know, so you still got to sell yourself. It's just you got to
Yeah,
sell yourself in a different way. And
absolutely.
like I remember seeing, I couldn't remember who it was, so I just had to look it up. So they're going to release EA is going to release a college football game for the first time in like a decade now.
Can't wait.
And I remember that somebody prominent had opted out, and I couldn't remember who it was. Now,
Eli's.
first things,
It was
well, yeah,
Archie
I was gonna
Manning.
say, yeah, yeah. First things first, over 10,000 players opted in. Okay, that's a pretty healthy amount.
Yeah.
Um, so what does it say here? EA Sports reached 10,000 opt-ins Friday night. This article is about 3 weeks old. Just 8 days after opening the process to players at FBS programs, a spokesman for the company told ESPN. Each player who opts in to have their name, image, and likeness used will receive $600 and a copy of the game valued at around $70. Seems perfectly reasonable to me, and if anything, $600 seems a little low. I
So
mean,
out
it
of those
bothers me to think.
10,000 players, EA Sports is dishing out $6 million.
Yeah, I mean, how much did they make off the CFP though? So it's like, but by surpassing 10,000 opt-ins, EA Sports has reached 87% of its goal for the game, which will feature teams with 85-man rosters. I still occasionally turn on my old PS2 sitting right over there and play NCAA 2003. I don't remember how big well, actually, no, I do. You had to cut your roster to, I think it was like 55 at the beginning of every season. So 85 is, much bigger. Now, here's my question. As like you said, Arch Manning publicly said he was opting out, saying that he wanted to focus on his performance on the field. Frankly, I don't understand what time commitments they would have to undergo to be in the game. Maybe do like a face scan thing or something, but
And you could do
I
that
don't know.
fucking, you could do that digitally through the computer.
Right, I was gonna say, if anything, it would seem like maybe like the game developers and programmers would have to go to campuses and try to get them all at once, kind of thing. Um, so I guess my what I'm curious to see then is now the 20-year-old game that I have from the PS2. Obviously, when you recruit, you get players with names because you're recruiting fictitious players,
Yeah.
and it's pretty fun. And it's pretty funny in retrospect now, seeing how common the names are, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Key and Peele East West Bowl here to the way that some like names have come over like the last 20 years. It's like, yeah, you ain't gonna get, Legarius Sneed, uh, in that game showing up as somebody who you're recruiting. You're gonna get Tom Murphy, you know.
You could so you could create a player on that one too, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, you can. Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm just saying it's like
What was the
the the
last
the,
year
the,
for?
rec- the recruiting player name database wasn't like
No,
prolific.
it wasn't very advanced.
Yeah,
What was the last year for that game? 2014?
2014, it said in the article I was just looking about, like the new thing. So here is
I can't
the
wait for that game to come out.
I'm almost I'm almost tempted to go spend the money on a system just for that game. I really am. But then I realized I wouldn't spend enough time playing it to justify the spending the money on it. So maybe in a year or two after I've actually finally earned my damn CPA. Because once like the tax season starts dying out, I'm definitely going to be focusing a lot of time on that because it sounds like I'm going to have time to study at the office too. So,
That's good.
something that I always thought I was going to have at the old job, but never really found the time for various reasons. But anyway, so what I wonder then is this. Now, the old games, when you turn them on, you put them in for the first time, you started a new season, dynasty, whatever the fuck they called it. The rosters had players' numbers who were obviously based
On
on
those positions.
real people. And that's, of course, what the whole lawsuit from like Ed O'Bannon and his people came to, was that it it was like, it was kind of like a no real players are in this game
With the
kind of
wink.
thing. And look, it's like I don't blame the game makers for not just creating an entirely fictitious roster. That would probably piss off the consumer more. I mean, O'Bannon's lawsuit was legit too. It's like, yeah, it's like you're using my likeness and I'm not being compensated for it, and this was, yeah, but anyway. So my question is, because of the way this whole system works now, will Arch Manning be in the game in the sense of, is there going to be a guy on Texas's roster who is a quarterback who looks vaguely like Arch Manning
But he'll
and
be black.
is wearing number 16?
He'll be black. Guarantee you. Guarantee you. I swear they're gonna do it. I swear. They're
Well,
not he's
here's
not
well,
gonna be a
because
white guy as a quarterback number 16. He'll be a black guy as a
yeah,
quarterback number 16
my guess is that
to
they
stay away
can't.
from that controversy.
My guess is that they can't. Like if somebody publicly says I'm opting out, I'm choosing not to be in this game, it means that you can't they can't include him in any way, shape, or form, especially when they're going to be creating so many other people. Like, do you remember Tecmo Super Bowl for the NES?
Oh yeah.
Remember how they had every single player named in that game with three exceptions? You had QB Bills, QB Eagles, and I believe it was QB Browns,
Yep.
not Jim Kelly, Randall Cunningham, and Bernie Kosar. and I don't remember why it was just those three guys. Like maybe I'm gonna have to look that up at some point if I remember, because I'm not gonna do it right now. But it was like, but they were is like, and that game, of course, I don't even think they gave them like their numbers. Not that numbers were really important in that game either.
No.
Uh, in fact, I'm not even sure if they necessarily even had numbers in that game. You definitely couldn't see them on like the little figures on the field, of course, but like when you go to like the roster pages, I don't know if they had like numbers assigned. I'd have to go back and find
I
an
I
emulator now.
I think they did.
Yeah, so I just don't remember. It's been so long since I've looked at that game. But so my guess is that yeah, if you want, if you're a Texas fan or anybody, I guess, but I would think a Texas fan would be the primary people who would want to do this. If you want Arch Manning in the game, you're going to have to create him, assuming there's a create a player mode, which it would seem very strange to not have one because that became
Yeah.
so commonplace. And it's like you can't really restrict people from creating, you know what I mean? So it's like just because somebody creates a player named Arch Manning in the game doesn't mean that you're using Arch Manning's name, image, and likeness in that sense.
Yeah.
Name,
Yeah.
name, yes, but again, it's like you can use any name in any game. Image and likeness, I mean, you might be able to create somebody who looks kind of like him, but it's not going to be him in that
Exactly.
sense.
No.
So, you know, I don't think you can prevent people from creating a player, but we'll see how it goes.
Listen, they better have creative player because QB12 Anderson will be created for the University of Illinois, and I'll be winning the Heisman Trophy, baby.
You're going to say you're going to create yourself to lead your school to victory,
Correct.
which is of course the way to do it,
Like always.
Just we just of course, you got to get the job done within what, 4 years before you graduate. So
Yeah. I would always do when it came to college football, I'd always create myself as a quarterback or a running back.
yeah,
And just be, a running
running
back that also did kick returns.
yeah. I was gonna say running back's not as fun anymore.
Yeah. True, true. But I would make myself running back and put myself in the kick return game. Not punt returns, just kick returns.
It's funny in that game in the NCAA 2003 game. I was always much better at returning punts than kickoffs
Hmm.
because at least with that particular version of the game, the 2003 version, um, you could almost guarantee definitely not a touchdown because um, you can't guarantee you're going to get a touchdown on punt return, but you could guarantee how
Good
your
field
punt
position.
return was going to go depending upon what punt formation you called.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
that.
if you called a return, your blockers were idiots. And they would always like run back. You'd say, as like you see like the ball in the air advancing towards your returner, you see your blockers going up like this. All of a sudden, they turn here where there's nobody, and the two gunners are right in your goddamn face. If you called a punt block, the gunners wouldn't be able to get to you because they basically were playing like max protect essentially.
Yeah.
And so but when the punt gets to you, there's nobody usually within 10 yards of you. So you get a nice little head start. And if you get a couple blocks of the field, you can find a lane and get in there very easy.
It happened on
Yeah,
the older
kickoff.
versions too. Like 12,
Yeah, I was
13
gonna
and
say,
14. I used to do it all the time.
yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't. Something tells me that was something that they probably wouldn't get fixed.
Yeah, not so
Um,
much.
Yeah, but kickoffs were, and I broke a few kickoff returns here and there, but they were much more difficult. So, oh, they were just showing a thing on CBS about how Caleb Love had a great first half and a not so great second half against Dayton today. He had 13 points on 5 of 7 and 3 of 5 shooting in the first half. He only had 6 points on like 1 of 8 and 0 and 3 in the second half or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're We 33.9 seconds left. We're up 88-63.
Yes, yes.
This Illinois team is deep. It's got a good bench.
Oh shit! I damn it.
Got a good bench
Changed
and
the
they play
channel.
hard.
I changed the channel on my TV to go to the end of the Tennessee Texas game, and then I forgot to turn back to the hockey game, which I missed a goal by each team in the intervening
Uh
time, and I'm afraid, well, not afraid, but I'm thinking that they have gone to overtime now as I rewound my TV. Let's
oh,
see,
here we
40
go. We
seconds.
we going to the Sweet 16, baby.
How sweet it is to be loved. How sweet it is to be in the Sweet 16. Let's see here. Does anybody get a shot off? Doesn't look like it.
I mean, look at Creighton and Oregon. 36-34 Creighton right now at halftime.
Yes.
There's been some close halftime scores for most of the games
Yeah.
today.
This has been kind of a disappointing tournament in a way. There hasn't been a lot of chaos
I'm fine
so
with
far.
that. I'm fine with
Well, no,
that.
that's what I mean. And I'm like, chalk isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's like, look, at some point, it's like you want to see the teams that get seeded the highest actually get there, because those are supposed to be the best teams. But we all live for upsets. So we had one 14 win, we had one 13 win, we had a couple of two or three 12s win and two or three 11s win. But, and I was saying to myself, yeah, I remember in years past, though, sometimes, let's say, um, there maybe weren't like a lot of like upsets or chaos in the first round. But then like, a lot of times you'd see some stuff happen in the second round. Like, you'd get like 8 seeds beating 1 seeds and stuff like that. And of
Yeah.
course, then I realized, oh shit, Carolina's a 1 seed playing a tough, well, I think Michigan State was a 9 seed. Um, and at least one person I saw, I think it was Joe Lunardi on ESPN, said Michigan State was going to beat Carolina. So I was kind of on edge and everything. But no, we haven't really
Yeah.
gotten a lot of that yet today either. I mean, NC State's a double-digit seed in the Sweet 16 here, but they were also playing at 14. So,
Yeah.
but other than that, let's see: 1 seed North Carolina, 2 seed Tennessee, 3 seed Illinois, 2 seed Arizona, 2 seed Iowa State. Uh, Gonzaga as a 5 beating 4 Kansas, but 4 5s are those are as much of toss-ups really as 8 9s in the first round. So,
Yeah. Those are a
um,
little bit challenging.
yeah. So I mean, tomorrow, let's see,
UConn,
we got a goalie with
Northwestern.
we got a goalie without his stick here. Uh, Marquette against Colorado is 2-10. Purdue against Utah State is 1-8. Duke against James Madison is 4-12. Go Dukes! And I don't mean Duke, I mean the Dukes, which is James Madison's nickname.
James Madison, go JM.
Yep. Baylor Clemson is 3-6. Alabama Grand Canyon is another 4-12. Uh, UConn Northwestern 1-9. Houston Texas A&M 1-9, and then San Diego State Yale is 5-13. So unless some of those lower seeded teams win, but I don't know. Can't really see. I can't see Yale and Texas A&M and Northwestern winning. I could see Grand Canyon beating Alabama. I could see James Madison beating Duke. I can't see Utah State beating Purdue. I guess I could see Colorado beating Marquette, but
I can see James Madison beating Duke. Absolutely. I
damn,
wouldn't
you just made a great save
I
there.
wouldn't put it past them, to be honest. Well, you
Yeah.
guys are playing the Panthers
I
tonight.
mean,
Where's the other
yeah,
game at?
so I mean, hey, they're getting at least 1 point out of this, but I much prefer them to actually win this game. So, um, I mean, yeah, James Madison, 32-3. I don't know how many were like really good teams they played all year, but it's like there is still something to be said for beating most everybody that you face.
Yeah.
And 2 of their 3 losses were to Appalachian State, who's an in-conference team for them in the Sun Belt, and who, because of that, was actually the 1 seed in the Sun Belt tournament. But somebody beat them before the Sun Belt final because James Madison beat somebody else in the Sun Belt championship. I don't remember who it was now. So,
But I mean,
um,
yeah. 31
And
and 3.
Duke has been inconsistent at times this year. So
Yes.
what's going on here? Everybody looks like they're trying to have an orgy in the crease. Meanwhile, Gustafson got knocked down and was out of the play, and they didn't call anything, and they didn't stop play. So
Yeah, so Illinois doesn't play till Thursday, so they get a break, bit of a
yeah,
break there, which is good.
Carolina plays Thursday as well. Yeah, it was kind of funny how it worked out decently because oh yeah, he got elbowed to the freaking face. I don't think it was intentional, but it happened. Um, so my dad and I are going to see Ghostbusters tomorrow. We have tentative plans to go see Godzilla Kong next week, which is going to be on Easter Sunday, unfortunately, because obviously I got to work on Saturday. Um, so we were kind of worried about Carolina's placement. And they were like, well, it sounds like they're going to end up playing in Charlotte no matter where they get seated. Charlotte's Thursday, Saturday, so that works. And then we were thinking they were going to be the 2 seed in the East for a while until some of the other teams started losing and they at least got to the ACC final. And it was like, so they clinched that fourth one. So you were like, oh, good. The West Regional, like the East Regional, is Thursday, Saturday as well. So yeah, we
Yeah.
won't have to worry about missing Carolina. We want to go see the movies. So.
Yeah, yeah. Me and Nico were gonna go see Ghostbusters tomorrow, but he's sick, so that's not happening. So
Yeah,
I
I heard
do
it didn't. I heard it didn't get really great reviews or even really good reviews. Like I
you
think the one
know,
time I
I
looked at this Rotten Tomato score, it was in the 40s. I'm like, you know what? Okay, so I saw what the score was, but you know what? I'm not going to read any reviews
no.
because I do that to myself way too often. And when I do that, I'll like remember a specific part of a review I read, and then I'll be looking for that, and it'll distract me from other shit. Let me
Yep.
watch the movie for my own opinions. Then I'll go back and read reviews, and maybe they'll mention something that I didn't really think about at the time, and then I'll go, "Oh yeah, that's true," or blah blah blah. So
I know. Right. Rotten Tomatoes.
it's much better to do it that way than to because it's like this is a movie I'm going to go see no matter what, you know,
Yeah.
whether it was now in the theater or in a couple months when it hits streaming. It's like I'm going to watch a Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah, yeah, I know
I
it didn't
mean,
get
I watched the female Ghostbusters, so
yeah. I mean, I know it didn't get great Rotten Tomato scores. Rotten Tomato to me is kind of like I don't know about that sometimes.
Rotten
Like,
Tomatoes, it's good, but it's misleading
yes.
because it's an aggregate and it just averages the score of whether a review is good or bad.
Yep.
So there's no real nuance. And the other thing is
IMDb gave it
too
an
is that
average score
sometimes
too, but I'm
yeah.
still fucking seeing it.
And the other thing about it too is that
It's
as
Ghostbusters.
I have found out sometimes when I've looked at the breakdown, like I'll go to the Rotten Tomatoes page for a movie and I'll bring up the critic reviews because user reviews are meaningless to me. Um, I know more than most of the people who go see these movies. Uh, we've had that discussion before.
Oh.
Um, but I'll like look at like the capsules of the reviews, and I really generally focus on the ones that are only marked as top reviews, which means like the
Mm.
actual top critics as opposed to Joe Schmo who writes for some web blog. Um, but sometimes when I read those, the snippet that they put in the thing, or even if I go read their full review, then does not seem to match to me whether they rated it fresh or rotten, you know?
Yep.
And I swear there have been times where I read something for like the same movie. I read one person's capsule. I said, "Oh, sounds like he liked it," but it says rotten. Then I read somebody else and it says, "Oh, sounds like he didn't like it," and it's fresh. So it's,
It's misleading.
it's
It is.
yeah, it's a little bit misleading. So it's like the Rangers are going to a shootout where they're 1-3 this year. So
Heaven
it's like
forbid.
I think if you want to get like a a cross section, if you will, of how good something really is with that, I think it's Metacritic is a better one to use because Metacritic ranks on a scale of like 1 to 100. So there's
Okay.
much more range at the very least. Um, you know, well here, let me do this real quick. Let me pull up the Wikipedia page. Ghost, not Ghoster. Ghostbusters, Frozen
Ghoster.
Empire. Yeah, let me go down to the reception, critical response. Yes, on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 43% of 208 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 5.2 out of 10. So it's like that average rating is better than the percentage, but
Yeah.
um, blah, 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 blah. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 46 out of 100 based on 41 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. It's funny how 46 out of 100, which in academia is very failing, you know, is considered mixed or average. But anyway, audiences surveyed by CinemaScore, which the only stock I put into CinemaScore is for word of mouth purposes, gave the film an average grade of B plus on an A plus to F scale, while those pulled by Post Track gave it an 80% overall positive score, with 64% saying they would definitely recommend the film. I was gonna say I don't think I'd ever heard of Post Track before. Cinema Score's been
Interesting.
around for forever, as far as I know. When I see a movie that's pretty high profile and everything like that, get a B plus from Cinema Score, you know what I think? Not good enough.
Mm,
If audiences aren't rating something at least an A minus, it means that audiences did not go gaga for it, you
yeah.
know. So because think about it. If you go see a movie that you like, you go see a movie that you really like, you're going to be really talking about it for at least the first hour or so after you leave the movie theater and everything. And that's when I think they get pulled for that thing. Um, so if you're not like very, very high enthusiastic about it right after you've seen it, you're never going to be,
Correct.
you
I
know.
agree.
And that also, of course, depends upon what type of movie it is. Now, let's say you went and saw The Zone of Interest. Do you know what that movie was?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. It won Best Foreign Language. Well, I'm sorry, International Feature Film at the Oscars. It was nominated for
Mhm.
Best Picture and Best Director as well. But the movie, of course, is about the guy who's the commandant of Auschwitz, living with his family right outside the camp walls. They're trying to live a normal life while right over the wall, the most horrific actions in the history of mankind is taking place. You know, that's not a movie that when you come out of watching it, you're going to be, oh, that was great. You know,
Mm.
you might say it was great, but you're going to be much more somber about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's heavy subject matter. But you're still gonna like if it's like somebody from Cinema Score is asking, and they wouldn't for that movie because it's not like a wide release at beginning, and it's not a tentpole film. It's not a major studio release, that kind of shit. But if somebody was asking you about it, you would still probably say the same way, like, "Oh yeah, oh my God," it was like, "Oh, it was good, but it was just like, oh, it was so tough to watch," which of course all Holocaust movies are. Um, but you're gonna have the same general feeling about like, oh yes, that was really good, and I would definitely tell other people to go see it. And I remember after I saw it, I think I talked to my dad about it that night, and I said, I know you're not going to go see it now. I said, but whenever it hits one of the streaming services, I definitely think you and mom should watch it. I mean, it's going to be a tough watch,
Yeah.
but at the very least, it's not explicit. Like you don't see any of the atrocities in that movie. You hear them, um, which is why the movie also won Best Sound at the Oscars because the sound of the film was so very, very vital. Um, yes, they won the shootout 2-1.
Oh, there's your 2 points.
Um, yep. So, your opinion though when you go see it, your when you talk about it afterwards is going to be the same. So again, I see a B plus score. I think that means people thought it was good, not great. And if if you're asked, would you go recommend it? 64% say they would definitely recommend the film. That's not that's two-thirds, so that's
Overwhelming.
not what Andy Samberg doing Nicolas Cage on Saturday Night Live would refer to as that's high praise.
Yeah.
That's middling. That's middling praise.
Yeah. So
So
IMDb gave Ghostbusters a 6.6 out of 10. I mean, it's
I kind of expected it from like this stuff I was reading. I was going to say, I bet the IMDb score is somewhere between 6 and 7. And the thing with IMDb scores, I've tracked IMDb scores for a long time, and I've tracked like the IMDb top 250 for years. I'll update it on my own Word file every when I remember to. I don't remember the last time I updated it now. But one thing I notice oftentimes with a lot of films, when the film hits new in theaters, it'll be it could get ranked really, really high.
yeah.
As months go by and then it hits Netflix, as I used to say, when the Netflix DVD service was still active. But now it's just basically say when it hits streaming, um, it starts ticking down pretty consistently.
Gotcha.
Um, and that's just because it's like for two reasons. One, more people can see a movie at home on DVD, on streaming, whatever it is anymore, than will go see it in a theater. You know, the people who go see a movie in a theater are more predisposed to like it than somebody who's like, I can wait until it comes on video on
Mm,
streaming. So
I get what you're saying.
the people who go see it initially are going to be much more enthusiastic about it and are going to be much more inclined to like it and are going to um, be much more likely to give it a high rating than somebody who goes and sees it whenever, you know. Like, I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. The Dark Knight is one movie that started high and stayed high. The Dark Knight is currently the third ranked film on IMDb behind Shawshank Redemption and The Godfather. Um,
Which Godfather?
one.
One.
Godfather 2 is fourth.
Mm.
Um,
Top five for both, baby.
yeah, yeah. Inception stayed up pretty high. Inception is ranked 14th. Okay, all right, here we go. Here we go.
Oh,
Dune Part 2 is currently 15th. That movie came out 3 weeks ago.
that's
I
another one
gave
I
it
want
an
to see.
Yeah, I gave it an 8. The average score right now is 8.8. It wasn't 9 good. I'm sorry. It just wasn't. It started to drag in the second half. Um, you know, but I guarantee in 3-4 months time when that's on max, it'll start tumbling down this list pretty good. I wish I could remember like a high point for something that was more recent. Like, okay, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is still holding in at 35. That's interesting because I do remember when it was out in theaters that was ranked higher. And I want to say the last time I updated my version of this list, it was it had fallen lower. And ooh, I have not updated my version of the IMDb top 250 list since January. I usually try to do it once a month. Um, Let me see. Oh no, it was 30th when I updated in January. So okay, it's fallen 5 spots in the 2 months since. That's not tremendous, but again, it still kind of just goes to my greater point that they will start dropping as time goes on, generally. Now, some, again, like I said, will settle in at a certain position, and then once if they like stay there, they stay there. You know, like Whiplash is 42nd all time. I cannot believe Whiplash is 42nd.
Really?
Um, yeah, just as an example, what's Whiplash ranked higher than right now? Oh, Casablanca. You know,
Wow.
uh, Rear Window, Alien. So,
Yeah, it's weird.
uh, yeah, some interesting stuff can happen on that list, of course, and obviously it also the IMDb top 250 also skews a little more towards genre movies, which really is fine with me too, because when lists of greatest films of all times come out, genre films usually get the short shrift. I think it took like the Lord of the Rings trilogy to start changing people's minds about that, where it's like even like the Star Wars trilogy never really
Yeah,
did. So
true. Very true.
speaking of movies too, did you see the trailer for The Ghost with the Most?
Did
The juice is loose.
I did. I did.
I'm
It's
I'm
more of
going
a
to be
teaser
anxious to
trailer. I'm waiting for
well,
the
it was
full
definitely yeah, it
trailer,
was definitely just a teaser. Yeah.
but
Because
I'm interested. They got me.
I I'm interested too. Now, here's the thing. So in the teaser, it's like you see them attending a funeral. I'm going to assume it was for the character that was played by Jeffrey Jones because, he's been pretty much persona non grata ever since the child porn charges from
Oh
about 20
yes.
years ago happened to him. I think the only thing I ever have seen him in since that happened was Deadwood. He was in the Deadwood series, and then they did bring him back for the movie as well, but he was kind of barely in the movie.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that it's his funeral at the beginning and he's not in the cast list. Now here's why I'm interested too. So obviously Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara are back as well as Michael Keaton. Jenna Ortega is in the movie playing Lydia's, Winona Ryder's daughter.
Yep.
I don't get it with Jenna Ortega. I really don't.
No?
I've not seen her really in anything. I didn't watch Wednesday and everything, but I'm also not seeing why just because of that show everybody thinks she's like the next big thing. She can change my mind. Um, Justin Theroux is in it. It says he's playing a character called Rory. I don't know if he's like Winona Ryder's husband or anything like that. But then these are the two that I find kind of most interesting. Willem Dafoe as a ghost detective who in life was a B movie action star. So kind of funny enough by Willem Dafoe having played an action star, even if it was a B movie action star.
That was fucking great.
And obviously, of course, Sylvia Sidney couldn't be in this movie since she passed away a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so we knew we weren't going to see her. So it's like, is Willem Dafoe taking her character's place? That sounds like maybe kind of sort of.
Yeah, kind of sort of.
And also, yeah, and also, of course, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin's characters are not in this either, which be a little hard for them to be in it because obviously they've aged, whereas their characters shouldn't have being ghosts.
Yes.
Um, but this is the interesting one. Monica Bellucci as Beetlejuice's wife.
Oh, well, I did hear a synopsis that they're supposed to dive into like the history of Beetlejuice and
Yeah.
how he became what he is now. So that is going to be interesting
Well, he gave us
as
his
well.
backstory in the original. Remember, he's like, "Oh, I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I attended Juilliard. I hung around during the Black Plague, and I had a pretty good time during that. I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting, So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it's like, is she Beetlejuice's wife from like before he died and became Beetlejuice, or is she Beetlejuice's wife here in the afterlife? Because if you remember, of course, the first movie, he wanted to get out and his condition for helping Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin's characters there at the end when they were being like aged and shit by the like seance, whatever the hell it was that they were doing, was that he had to get married and Winona Ryder agreed to it, and that's what he was trying to do with the end, but they stopped him from doing it and blah 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 blah. So that part of it is intriguing on the face as well. Maybe when they release a full trailer in a 2 months or so,
Yeah.
we'll get a better idea because this movie comes out in early September. So, um, and the thing for me too is that it was always this weird dichotomy because he was quite obviously a villain in the first movie.
Yeah.
He was the villain. Do you remember the animated show?
Very little. I kind of do and I kind of don't. I don't remember a lot of it.
I watched that a lot, and what I liked about it was that they made it its own thing. And one of the ways in which they made it its own thing is that in the animated show, Beetlejuice and Lydia are best friends. And Lydia is constantly going with Beetlejuice into like I don't remember what they called it, like the afterworld or netherworld or something. It was like the land where like all the ghosts lived and everything. And they'd
Gotcha.
get into various misadventures, which would sometimes bleed over back into the real world. And Lydia's parents were always like, these like aloof idiots, not really ever fully being aware of what was going on. And sometimes Beetlejuice would cross over and like be like in disguise and like it's like different characters and like different episodes, and they would never pick up on the fact that it was always him. Um, so it was like it was always entertaining. I always remember liking that show quite a bit when it was on back in the 90s. But it's like it's also like a very big tonal departure from the movie. And obviously, of course, the movie doesn't have to do anything tied to the animated show,
Oh, of course
obviously.
not.
And it shouldn't. But it's just like it's gonna be weird in a way. It's like if he's just the outright villain of this again, which I'm just going to assume he has to be, you know.
Yeah, I think he is. Unless something else is
Because
going on.
because you just get the sense that he's going to be out for revenge, you know, in whatever way he can get
40
it.
years later.
Well, 35-ish,
Yeah,
who's counting?
give or take.
Yeah. You gotta, the funny thing too is what you always have to remember is what movie did Michael Keaton do after Beetlejuice?
Wasn't it Batman?
It was Batman.
Hmm.
And Vice, because I've been watching Dark Side of the Ring, of course, um, Vice also has this series of shows called like Icons on Earth.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And so they were advertising the hell out of one about Batman. And I thought it was going to be like a singular episode. And no, it's like a season's worth of stuff. And apparently they're covering from like like the way that they got the first Batman movie from 1989 off the ground. And it sounds like they're going at least all the way through Nolan's movies, if not further. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know if they're going to go into the Snyder and Matt Reeves movies at all. Uh, so the first episode was very interesting because they have an interesting cross section of people who they're talking to as well. Like they're talking to a couple of the original producers. They've got a couple of the original actors. Like they've got Robert Wool and Billy D. Williams, and Robert Wool's also the narrator, which is funny. He at least addresses the fact that he's narrating it, and like also appearing in it. So, and they also had Sean Young on it, which here's something I don't think knew or remembered. Sean Young was originally cast as Vicky Vale.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
And something I guess happens where she like there was supposed to be this horse riding scene, which I don't remember being in the final cut. I'm pretty sure it's not. And she, I think, like where the first episode like ended was like she like I think falls off a horse and hurts herself, and I think they had to replace her, and that's where they got Kim Basinger. And then what's always funny about this is that see, I didn't remember that part of it. What I always remember about Sean Young when it came to Batman is that I don't know if they pursued her or if she pursued it, but she was like trying desperately to be cast as Catwoman in Batman Returns.
Hmm.
I always remember. And I think in a lot of ways it started a downfall of her career because I always heard these stories that she went crazy.
Hmm.
Um, like that she like rubbed the producers the wrong way or that she like pursued the role a little too vigorously, I guess.
Hmm.
And another thing I remember, and I hope
Overdoing
they
it.
address it when, and another thing I remember when I hope they address it when they get to it is that Michelle Pfeiffer wasn't the first actress cast as Catwoman either. I'm pretty sure Annette Bening was, but she got pregnant, so obviously she couldn't do the role.
Yeah.
I'm like 95% certain that's right because I also do remember interviews where Bening expressed regret at not being able to do the role. Um, but like the other place where the first episode ended was Sean Young was keeping like a journal and a diary, and she was like taking pictures, and it started to rub Nicholson and Keaton the wrong way for various reasons. Like Nicholson, I guess, because he didn't like his picture being taken, and Keaton because he just found it a little odd and everything. But anyway, the point I was trying to make is they addressed this in the episode, and like Robert Will said it succinctly: if social media had existed in 1988, 1989, Michael Keaton would have never been Batman
Probably not.
because the reaction when Michael Keaton was cast as Batman was, "Huh? The comedy guy, Mr. Mom? He's gonna be Batman?" you
Yeah.
know, nobody could see it. And the way they were explaining it was that it was like he had to be Bruce Wayne, not Batman, you know?
Yeah.
And you could see where he was, when you watch those two movies. So,
Oh yeah. He definitely played
and
a
it's
good
like,
Bruce Wayne.
yeah, yeah. A lot of people are critical of Val Kilmer, and it's like I thought Kilmer played the role fine the way he did it. It's like, was it Keaton? No, it wasn't. And should Kilmer have been trying to imitate Keaton? No, he shouldn't have.
No, not at all.
Um, and I'm not going to criticize George Clooney because it wasn't his fault. He played the
Uh,
role.
he came in at a time where they were taking that
Yeah,
fucking movie to another crazy ass atmosphere.
he played the role as it was written.
Yeah.
You know, um, and I still think his brief little cameo at the end of The Flash was pretty hysterical. So, first of all, he agreed to do it. So, but it's like with Batman and Robin, I remember reading Entertainment Weekly's summer movie preview issue in 1997 because I think I started subscribing to that magazine then. And in like the big preview issue that they used to do, which was like so extensive, like all the movies they covered and everything. When got to talking about Batman and Robin, they had comments from, I don't remember if it was from Joel Schumacher, if it was from one of the producers, or it was like, well, we decided it was time for Batman to grow up and get past the whole mommy and daddy thing. And at the time, at
And make it more
16,
comic bookish. Okay, great.
yeah, and at the time, for whatever reason, I was 16. I remember saying, yeah, it probably is about time. Totally forgetting that that's the essence of what makes Batman Batman.
Pretty much.
And obviously, in Batman and Robin, Batman's never brooding over his parents the way he does in the first three movies of that series. It's about him trying to mentor Robin and dealing with Alfred dying and that kind of stuff. And there's plenty you could have done with that too, which they did. The problem was that Chris O'Donnell wasn't very good in that movie. And the
Mhm.
script was just ridiculous. So, but
Yes.
anyway, so it seems like it's an interesting series. I don't know exactly how many episodes it's going to last, but I don't remember specifically because I was too young at the time, of course. It was only 7 or 8 when they were casting the first Batman. And the funny thing is too, my only real exposure to Batman at that point was I'd seen reruns of the Adam West TV series at that point. I'd seen the old Super Friends cartoons because this was
Mhm.
before Batman the Animated Series too. And so when I was like talking in the summer of 1989, I remember being at like a get together at my grandfather's house in New Jersey, my mother's side of the family. And I was talking about how, oh yeah, I really want to see Batman. I really want to see Batman. And I had a couple of my aunts and uncles telling me like, this isn't Batman like you expect it to be, because they knew what my exposure to Batman was.
Yeah.
And I, of course, always told them, oh yeah, every time I don't care, it's Batman. I want to see Batman. And then, of course, I had the misunderstanding moment when I saw Batman in the theaters that freaked me out until I realized what I was actually looking at. I think I've explained it before. It's the scene in the chemical plant towards the beginning of the movie
Yeah, yeah.
when Joker falls into the vat of chemicals, and then like you see his like hand come above the water, and again it's like the two fingers here, the glove is ripped through, so you see the white fingers with the green fingernails, and for some
Hmm.
reason I always thought it was his eyeballs on his fingers. And as an 8-year-old, that freaked me right the fuck out to the
Oh,
point where I spent most of the rest of the movie in the lobby. So yeah.
silly
Um,
kid. Silly 8-year-old
but
you were.
anyway, so it's like this is on like Wednesday nights right now, so I'm gonna watch the rest of it because I'm curious to see how far they go into it. Because when they were talking about like the casting for Joker too, they showed pictures of all these other people who were, I guess, were at least at one point considered for Joker, and I can't remember who all of them were. The one I do remember, of course, was Robin Williams,
Yeah,
which
I remember
was
that.
which had been long talked about and became a thing later when they got to Batman Forever. There were serious discussions about casting Robin Williams as Riddler. But Williams refused to hear about it unless he was apologized to because he felt that they had used him to get Nicholson to agree to it, to be
Yeah.
the Joker for the first one. And he also felt that they used his salary demands to justify paying Nicholson what he wanted. So yeah.
Understandable.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I'd just be curious to see about how much like into the behind the scenes stuff they go through it and all, because there are a lot of interesting behind the scenes stories. And when they get to the Nolan movies, I remember the initial reaction. And again, we still didn't really have true social media back in 2007, but we had the internet. And I remember the reaction to Heath Ledger being cast as Joker. And I remember what my reaction was too, which was pretty much, huh?
I know everyone was up in arms about that. I was just like, let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. Now, two things about that. Obviously, in retrospect, we were all idiots, you know, because he was completely unforgettable. He ended up winning an Oscar posthumously, but I think he would
Yeah.
have won that Oscar even if he was alive. It wasn't like they just gave it to him because he had passed away or anything like that. Um, but I think a lot of the reasons why people reacted so negatively to that was what was one of the movies that Ledger had come off of recently before he was cast as the Joker.
Oh God.
If you don't remember, it's okay.
I don't really remember.
Brokeback Mountain.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was the one or not.
Yeah. So he just got through playing a gay man in a very prominent movie. Doesn't matter that it got a lot of Oscar nominations. He got an Oscar nomination. You will never convince me otherwise that a good portion of the backlash to him being cast as Joker wasn't because he had just played such a prominent gay character. It
Oh, absolutely.
definitely was. You will
Absolutely.
not convince me otherwise. Because like this shit still permeates now, especially in now the age of social media. Um, so I don't know if you saw the trailer for The Acolyte that debuted this week.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm anxious to see this show because it's a part of Star Wars that has never been depicted before. Because this is
Correct.
100 years before Phantom Menace. So, it's going to be very interesting to see what they go with this. I had some video pop up in my YouTube feed, and I really love to know why it did. Because it was from an obvious,
Damn algorithms.
yeah, it was from an obvious group that has an obvious agenda. Now, I'm not going to say right wing because it's something slightly more nefarious than that.
Hmm.
They were just saying that this is the least anticipated, least asked for Star Wars show ever. They were attacking the woman who's the showrunner, saying that all she ever does is inject her identity politics into it. They said something about her or the main writer on the show, who I believe is also a woman, um, being having formerly worked for Harvey Weinstein, as
Oh
if
my
that
God. All this
somehow made them complicit in Harvey
clickbait,
Weinstein's crimes.
clickbait shit.
Um, yeah, and they again I don't remember if they used the term woke in the thing. They were criticizing the writer who said something about how she said that she didn't know anything about Star Wars.
Oh my
Um,
God.
you know, that can be a good thing, possibly. It's like Albert's her final judgment, until we see it. Then they were criticizing the one actress who's in it, who's a black woman, because she said something about Star Wars has never really been a safe place for people of color in the Star Wars universe. And they were
Oh
trying
my
to,
God. What
and this,
crazy narratives.
yeah,
Made up
but
shit.
so they were going after that. And this was a short video too. This was like a 30 to 60-second video. This wasn't a prolonged thing, which is probably the only reason why I clicked on it. But so they were trying to say that she was wrong because they showed pictures of Lando and Mace Windu. Yeah, you show pictures of pretty much the only black character in the entire original trilogy and in the entire sequel trilogy or prequel trilogy, as if to say, Star Wars has always been inclusive. Not exactly, but again, if you want to believe that, that's fine. You go ahead and you believe that. Do the rest of
Stupidity.
us a favor. Do the rest of us a favor then when the show debuts. Don't watch it and shut the fuck up.
Yeah. That's some hypocritical shit right there.
And then because I clicked on that, I think it was from the same group. I don't know for sure. I saw something on like the right hand side of my YouTube feed when I was watching a YouTube video earlier tonight, and I don't even remember what it said now, but it was talking about the woman who's the showrunner. I can't remember her name right now. I could look it up, but it's not really that important at the moment. But it was saying this, that, or the other thing. I don't really remember what. I don't even really care. But when I got the idea of what the gist of the video was, I clicked on the little like, three dot thing next to it, and I just went and I put, "Don't show videos from this channel."
Yeah, that was a weird
Because
algorithm you got
I
for
don't want to
some
hear it.
stupid
I do
shit.
not want to hear it. So it's like, and somebody could be out there saying, "Oh well, you're blocking different voices." Like, no, 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 no. I'm not blocking differing voices. I am blocking people who have made up their minds about this without seeing it,
Yeah.
assuming that they're not going to like it, trying to say that it's pushing an agenda, and that's not my agenda. And it's not, so no, I don't need to listen to people like that. Okay, I don't. So fuck
No,
them.
no, no. Yeah, the agenda pusher. That's just stupidity talking about stuff like that about,
Yeah.
something that
Now,
hasn't come out yet and just, you know,
yeah.
criticizing
Now,
something of that nature.
look, if they do start like putting like obvious like points of view into the story, into
Even
the
call it
show
out.
that I feel don't fit, aren't natural, don't make sense, feel like they were obviously injected to make a point to modern times, this, that, or the other thing, yeah, I'll I'll criticize it if I feel like it's warranted. Trust me, okay? I'm not above criticizing people in positions that I happen to agree with if I feel like they don't belong in a work of fiction. You know,
Hmm.
it's like I remember my sister and I having discussions about episode three when we came to the conclusion that a lot of the stuff about the rise of the empire felt like there was some slight commentary, not big, but slight commentary on what had been going on in the early Bush years with the response to 9/11 and the Iraq War and shit like that.
Mm.
But it wasn't like I never felt like it was overbearing or anything of that sort. Like I felt like it was subtle enough and just kind of saying, So
Yeah.
I didn't mind that because it wasn't like trying to say something. So Oregon is going to the free throw line for the first time tonight, 31 minutes into the game.
Damn.
Oh, no, no, they're not. They called it a non-shooting foul. Okay.
Yeah, I turned the game off.
Yeah, it's back and forth. There's like 9 minutes to go. Oregon's got a 1 point lead. It's been seesawing. So speaking of trailers then as well, so we talked about Beetlejuice, we talked about the Acolyte. Did you see the teaser trailer for Alien Romulus?
No, not yet.
So the only thing I'll say then, I won't talk about the trailer itself, but it says that this movie takes place between Alien and Aliens.
Okay.
So that immediately raises up some questions to me then about how movie is going to end because think of how Aliens begins, whether you're watching like the director's cut or not. I can't remember what they call it, director's cut. They just call it like expanded edition or special edition.
Yeah.
In the theatrical cut of Aliens, you never see the planet until they get there, until Ripley and the Marines get there.
Yeah.
In the direct, I'll just call it director's cut. In the director's cut, you do see a couple of scenes on the planet. Specifically, you see the scenes of Newt, her brother, and her parents. They go out to investigate what turns out to be the ship that Ripley and the Nostromo crew found in the first movie, and then you see the mother frantically come back to the ship, and the father's got the fucking face hugger, on his
Oh,
face and
yes.
everything. You also see a scene inside the colonist base where you see like Wayland Yutani Corporation spelled out, which they hadn't named that in Alien, and I don't think they actually named it because you only ever see that in the director's cut. I don't think they ever named that until Alien 3, if I recall. I
I
could be
think
wrong on
so.
that because I think I've only ever watched Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection like once each because they're not great.
Yeah, they're all right.
Especially Alien Resurrection. Um, but it does raise the question, of course, where when Ripley's being debriefed by the company people after she gets back at the beginning of Aliens, they of course claim that they don't know anything about the alien species. They tell her that there's been colonists on the planet for I don't remember how many years now it was, and they've never encountered anything. So it makes me wonder how it's going to fit in that because it look okay. I'll just say this much about the trailer. It looks like it's set on a ship that the set design definitely harkens back to the Nostromo. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the question, of course, is like, how does the alien get on the ship? Did they also land on LV 426, or I think that was the planet name? And mistakenly bring one back on board, the same way that, well, or do they bring one back on board, better, mistakenly or not? And then so does the whole crew get wiped out and the ship totally lost so that nobody could ever say that they heard about, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I gotcha.
And
I see
obviously
where you're
there's
going
what
with
they
that.
said like they said there was like I think 58 years or something like that between Alien and Aliens. Um,
Yeah.
so it's like how close to either one. So I don't know. So I'm just intrigued because it's definitely looking like it's the trailer definitely makes you think a lot of the original one in a lot of ways.
Gotcha.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I
No.
of course am still a little disappointed that we'll probably never get a sequel to Covenant because I guess I'm one of those people who still thought Prometheus and Covenant were decent.
Yeah, I like them.
Uh, and I was still the way Covenant ended, I definitely wanted to see where they intended to take it from there because I still wanted to see how they were going to get from there to Alien, but it sounds like we're never going to get that now. So,
No. Nope.
and one last
Unfortunately.
movie thing I wanted to mention. Did you see the story that implies, I stress implies, that the Joker sequel is going to be a musical?
So I know there's some musical aspects to it, but I don't know the extent of it.
Well, here's the thing. Insiders privy to filming and early versions of Todd Phillips' eagerly awaited sequel to Joker tell Variety that the movie leans heavily towards being mostly a jukebox musical.
A jukebox musical.
A jukebox musical kind of scares me even more,
Yes.
as it integrates at least 15 reinterpretations of very well-known songs. One is said to be That's Entertainment from the 1953 musical The Bandwagon, famously associated with Judy Garland. Now, using a song that familiar, that old, there's a lot of different ways they could do something like that. When I hear jukebox musical, I'm thinking of like Moulin Rouge,
Yeah.
Hairspray,
Yeah.
those kind of movies. I don't know how that's going to fit in. I
I
have
hope
enough
I hope
misgivings
it's
as
not
it
a
is.
lot.
Yeah, I have enough misgivings as it is about Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn. Not that I think that she's a bad actress from the things that I've seen her in, just that I don't think there's nothing that I've seen in her acting performances that I've seen that makes me say she can pull off the manic energy that is Harley Quinn. And if they decided to cast her then because they wanted her to sing, uh,
Well, she could sing.
well, I know she can sing it, but it's like I don't want her to. You
I
know,
gotcha.
I
I
don't
hear
want
you.
Harley Quinn to be singing and shit, So it's like I don't want like I can't
Yeah.
remember what the hell that thing was called, like Once More with Feeling or something like that. I think I don't remember, but so I don't know. I'm a little trepidatious now. I mean, I wasn't an overwhelming fan of the first one to begin with because I felt like it kind of missed its mark with the point it was trying to make.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
after having some discussions with one of my coworkers, I feel like I maybe owe the film another look to see if maybe they did make the point they wanted to, and I was just not seeing it that way at the time, blah blah blah. But so it's like I'm still gonna go see this, but it's like I'm definitely a little bit on the side now. So
Yeah, I am too. I'm gonna see it, but I'm just a little skeptical.
yeah, I mean, it's bad enough that the Batman Part Two has been pushed back a full freaking year, you know? So,
That pissed me off.
yeah, well, hey, we'll get the Penguin series, which they really released a teaser trailer for a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I think it said that's going to come out in the fall. So Farrell looks like he's comfortably stepped back into the makeup.
Yeah, yes.
He's got the voice back again and everything. In the trailer, he's like reciting the story of some gangster who used to like run the neighborhood where he lived as a kid and everything. So it's kind of interesting. So
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Some of these movies, um, just gonna, I'll see them. Even if I'm skeptical on them or I'm a little hesitant, gotta give them a chance. Maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe
yeah,
some performances will be better than what I might think they will be. So we'll go with that.
yeah, yeah. It's like I got into a couple arguments with my sister about some of the Oscar movies a few months ago. Um, she was like, "Oh, Maestro, so great, Maestro, so great." I'm like, and I just said to her, "Well, it's not the front runner for like Best Picture or anything like that right now." And I was basing that off of what was how the rankings were going on Gold Derby. And she goes, "Well, what is?" And I said, "Oppenheimer was." And she went, "Ew, I wouldn't watch that movie. I can't watch a movie about a mass murderer." And I just went, first of all he was the guy who headed the project that built the bomb. He wasn't the only person building the bomb. He also was not the person who dropped the bomb, all of which is covered in the movie.
Pretty much.
But she was like, "No, that movie would just upset me too much." I'm like, "Well, you can't go making comments like, ew, that."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, you haven't seen Maestro." I said, "I know, I haven't seen Maestro yet. You know what I also didn't do? Criticize it. All I said was it's not leading the Oscar tracking. That's all I
Yeah.
said." And you know what? I saw Maestro, and it was a very much the definition of a good, not great movie.
Gotcha.
The biggest problem with the movie was that it made its lead character entirely unlikable.
Hmm. That's what I heard from a lot of people.
Yeah, which in some movies is fine. Some movies you maybe you probably want your lead character to be unlikable in certain ways. That wasn't one of them, especially when you're talking about a real person.
Hmm.
Point out
Yeah.
his faults, yes. Go over the top with it and make him seem like he was just like some scumbag who was constantly running out on his wife with other men, which, as far as I know, Leonard Bernstein did. Um, but it's like, yeah, he doesn't come off as being a very likable guy. A guy that you want to do well, and his poor wife is long suffering and everything, and then she gets sick, and but hey, it gave Carrie Mulligan a chance to go back to doing what she does best as an actress. Frown.
Yeah.
She has one of the frowniest fucking faces I've ever seen from a prominent actress. Like, it's like she's like incapable of curling her lips up into a smile. And I've said that about her for a long time. That's not like some like new thing that I hit upon after seeing that. I think I
No,
came to
yeah.
that conclusion after oh shit. It was some movie that she did. It was a weird one with like Keira Knightley and Andrew Garfield where they played like clones and who were being like harvested for parts. I can't remember what the name of it
Hmm.
was. It's from about 10 or 12 years ago.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
And the funny thing is too is like the last movie I'd seen Carrie Mulligan in was that one from a couple years ago. Was a Promising Young Woman where she was did this like elaborate revenge thing and everything. I thought that movie was like very, very good and that she was very, very good in it. And I didn't mind that she wasn't smiling in that movie because she wasn't supposed to. Uh, but I was just like, I don't know. I just run hot and cold with her. So
All right. We're almost at that time. So
yeah,
so let's see. We have, like our caption says, 14 days to WrestleMania. So 14
yes.
days we will be at
14 days,
WrestleMania.
still just the 10 matches announced. And as
Yes.
AJ and I were discussing earlier tonight, supposedly, and I must emphasize supposedly, they want to have a total of 14 matches. So they've got basically 1 week to add 4 matches because You definitely can't add any matches on SmackDown the night before WrestleMania.
Nope.
And I don't really think you should be adding any matches on the last Raw before WrestleMania either. Even if it's like an afterthought type match, still at least would just want to announce it and then give it a week to try to build upon it to make people just say like, "Ooh, I want to see that match." So
Yeah.
uh, we'll see what they do because there's still obviously some prominent people who aren't on the card, but
Yeah. And, I guess those four matches they need to add is two for the main show each night and then two pre-shows for each night. That's fine. Whatever.
yeah,
I
matches that are
mean,
going to go on before 7 o'clock, I guess, which seems
yeah,
a little
probably
weird, but
between 6 and 7, but
yeah,
around
seems
6:30 to 7. Who knows? Whatever they
yeah,
put them on.
seems a little weird, but if that's the way they want to do it. Now, I posed this question to AJ as well. So after what happened last night, I was thinking they're going to end up doing a women's tag title match of Naomi and Bianca against the Kabuki Warriors. And somebody needs to tell Asuka to stop dancing, by the way. She was annoying the hell out of me last night with that stupid dance she was doing. Then I saw something on my Facebook feed while I was on the phone with AJ, which made me go, hmm. So would you rather? He said he didn't want to see either match because he just wants Tiffany to be on the card, which fine.
Of course.
Um, would you rather don't consider Tiffany into this in any way, please? Would you rather see the match that I just mentioned, or would you rather see a six-woman match of Asuka, Kyrie, and Dakota against Bianca, Naomi, and Jade?
First one.
You'd rather see just the tag title match?
Yeah, yeah. I think, and the reason being is like I understand Jade hasn't wrestled yet, like in a match, like not
Yeah,
Royal Rumble.
yeah, right.
Because that's different. I just don't know if you want to risk putting her on a show with this big of a magnitude and what
Hmm.
WrestleMania is for her to
Right.
have any type of slip ups, where I'd rather you bring her out that Raw or SmackDown, whatever show she's going to be on, after
Well,
WrestleMania.
she's going to be on SmackDown. They said that she's officially joining the SmackDown roster next week.
Okay. I did not watch SmackDown last night, so I have no idea what happened.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
Yes.
that's one of the things that
Yes.
they covered
Okay.
on the show. So,
Yes, I did not watch SmackDown last night. So okay, so she is going to
yeah.
SmackDown. So great. So they should bring her out on the SmackDown after WrestleMania and kind of have a match with her at that point, or the
Yeah.
SmackDown after. I'm not saying she couldn't do it because she'll be protected because it'd be a six-woman match,
Right.
but at the same point, let's get the titles, put the titles up, you know,
Hmm.
put
Yeah.
put all the titles on the line.
So, yeah. So I kind of have two feelings on it. One, I kind of would want to see the six-woman match because you get a slightly better idea of how much she may or may not have improved.
Understand?
Um, and like you said, it's also still a six-woman match, so she wouldn't have to carry the match or anything like that. So you could still do the whole, accentuate the positive, hide the negative type stuff.
Yep.
But while you were talking, I remembered something else. Do you remember what Undertaker's WrestleMania 19 match was supposed to be?
God, no.
It was supposed to be a tag match of him and Nathan Jones against the Big Show and A Train.
Oh, is that
And
where they had some issues and it was pretty much a 2-on-1?
at like the last minute, they decided Nathan Jones wasn't ready. And they did an angle. I don't even remember if they did it on the pre-show because I can't remember if there was like a full pre-show back then. No, there was because I remember that's when Cena came out and was rapping about like the two rap artists who were offered to appear on the show and then didn't. I don't remember who they were now because it's we're talking 21 years ago.
Yeah, tell me
Um,
about it.
but so it was either on the pre-show or it was while the show was going on. They did an angle where Big Show and A Train attacked Nathan Jones in the locker room and knocked him out. so that it changed the match into a handicap match. Um, and Nathan Jones came out during the match, and I remember all he did was he did like a okay looking roundhouse kick in the aisle to one of the two heels. I don't remember which one. It's not really important, but that's all he did. And then he never really did much of anything because he like pretty much disappeared after that, and they sent him back to developmental. Then
Yeah.
they brought him back. I remember he was on Brock's team at Survivor Series that year, where it was meat madness. It was Brock, Big Show, A Train, Nathan Jones, and Matt Morgan uh, against a team that I believe it was Kurt Angle, John Cena, Chris Benoit, Bradshaw, and Hardcore Holly.
Oh God.
So yeah, where like Cena was like the last like addition. He like I think he replaced Farouk, Ron Simmons on that team because they did a thing where like he was hurt and like that's when they turned Cena face kind of. So
Yeah, and that's
um
and that's that's the thing. Like, I don't want something where like Jade comes out there and they're like, oh, she's not doing well, and they're like they try to pull an audible in the ring and it may not go well, and so like
yeah,
just if you don't
yeah,
think she's 100% ready, don't put her on
right.
WrestleMania. If you think
Exactly. I
she
so
is, go
yeah,
for it. If not,
yeah,
just wait.
right. So what I was basically trying to say, I was saying it without saying it. I don't want them to book that six-woman match and then they get to the day of the show and they go, "Oh my God, she's not ready. She can't do it. She can't handle it." And they do some, fuck up thing like that. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I
I
hope
mean,
she's ready because again, we know she's got the look.
she's athletic.
We,
She has the look. Her mic skills are
yeah,
decent enough to get her through.
yeah. I mean, I felt like she could still improve because I still felt like
Yes.
her whole mic skills were still based around her saying "cut the shit, Tony,"
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Shivani all the time. But yeah, I just hope that she has gotten better because she could be a really good asset, especially for a women's division that is not obviously, but actually getting older.
Hmm.
Like Charlotte, Becky, I think Bailey, Asuka and Natalia, I think a couple others, if I looked, are in their late 30s or older. So there are some women who are, and again, it's like we've obviously seen with the men that you can go a lot longer these
Oh,
days and everything.
yeah.
But unfortunately, there's also the double pressure of being a woman where you might say, I want a family, I want to
Yeah.
have kids,
Yeah.
So,
Look at
I mean,
Alexa Bliss.
obviously we know Becky already has one, so but Charlotte's married. I mean, I don't know if she wants kids or not, but it just, Charlotte, of course, has also had a couple serious injuries now, and this one's going to be a hard one to come back from. So, um, but yeah, so it's like, so if you can add more talented women, and we know Tiffany's going to be good,
Oh God, yeah.
and we know Rhea's going to be there for a while.
Yep.
I say
Hopefully.
fingers crossed because he hasn't mentioned it as much in the last few months, but Cornette still thinks that if Hollywood comes calling for Rhea, she'd be stupid not to go.
I mean, time will tell on that one. We'll see.
Yeah, Cornette, he seems to think that Rhea could be like a huge female action star. And my only issue with that is name one. It just doesn't seem like it's
True.
still really allowed,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So, uh, I mean, I think it would be cool if she did, but I just don't know how many like good mainstream projects they get. Like they tried to make I remember they tried to make a female action star several years ago. They put her in a high profile movie with a high profile director. It was Steven Soderbergh, and there were a lot of high profile co-stars. I want to say Michael Douglas, Ewan McGregor, and Antonio Banderas were all in it. But sorry, Gina Carano proved that she's not a real good actress. And this is before she became a right wing nut job and didn't do what she was told to by her employers at Disney.
Yeah, it's
because she obviously had the background to be a female action star, having been somebody who had been in MMA and shit like that.
oh
So,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
hey
But
Gina, how's that lawsuit not going?
yeah, I
Idiot.
know she has some new podcasts and some other stuff going on too. I've seen.
Yeah, she's trying the lawsuit in the court of public opinion, if you will. I know I've mixed a few cliches there, but sorry, that's not the way it works, you know.
No, no, definitely not. But yeah, listen, I'm counting down the days, next week and the week
Yeah,
after, and I'll
yeah.
be
I
flying up there and we'll be heading down to good old WrestleMania and having a good old time. We're gonna shoot some videos and post some shits on on social media for all you guys to
yeah,
laugh at our ridiculousness, but it's gonna be fun.
yeah. I still gotta try to see if I'm gonna try to order any of these shirts because like I think I mentioned that one that I sent to you guys, the one from the Wrestling Bios channel where it's like
Oh
the
yeah,
Hogan one with the
it's
old
out of
Chinese
stock.
proverb. Yeah, the 4X tall is not in stock, but the 5X is because I don't think the 4X would fit properly. So it's like, do I order this 5X shirt? Or, I just, so it's weird when you're big and tall, uh, you know, but and then it's like, but it's like that's only like I want to wear that shirt both nights, and so it's like we need to have something else. Like, do I want to order a new shirt just for this? But what would it be? Do I want to order the Cornette face T-shirt from his site? And it's also, of course, that's
You
we're
should
like
get the
2 weeks
cornet
away.
shirt, dude. You should
Yeah,
get the
with two
cornet.
weeks away, it's like, would I even get them in time and shit? Yeah, it was like the Cornette face shirt.
Express
Do I want to
shipping.
order do I want to get like the punk shirt that WWE sells? But it's like that would feel weird because he's not gonna like, participate even if he appears in some way, shape, or form.
I'm wearing my
Uh,
punk shit one night. Guarantee
yeah.
it.
I feel like I know what the best place is for him to be used on the WrestleMania card, and that is that he should be a guest commentator during the Seth Drew match.
Yep. Not a referee, a commentator.
Right, definitely not a referee because if I don't know if how much of Raw you saw, but they're saying about how he's going to be on Raw this coming week because it's in Chicago.
Oh,
But they were
yeah, yeah.
showing some videos of him rehabbing, and it looks like he's still got a pretty bulky brace on his arm. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
doubt he could even try to ref.
No, yeah, no. Commentator, great. Great. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, as long as they can integrate him well with whoever's going to be calling that match, which since it's a Raw match, presumably Cole and McAfee. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
but they could mix up the announce crews again for WrestleMania. I don't know. Like I don't know if they're going to have it be like Cole and McAfee for the Raw matches and Barrett and Graves for the SmackDown matches or not. So
Yeah, well, time will tell for that one.
yeah, we won't know because unless we like whip out our phones and put the network on and like you're trying try to put it this close to our ear to hear it over the crowd.
Try to hear what they're talking about, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, nonetheless, man, I'm excited. 2 weeks, 2 weeks away. Got all pretty much have all my shit ready.
yeah. My biggest concern is the weather, really, because
So I looked at the weather like 2 days ago, and it was supposed to be like, I think like that Friday I fly up, it's supposed to be like in the high 50s, low 60s, no rain.
yeah,
But I didn't check like today to see what the
yeah, and it's
forecast is
like
supposed to be.
it's a little silly to do it because I mean it's 2 weeks away. The forecast is going to change 18 times between now and then.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
when I looked at my weather app today, which goes out exactly 2 weeks on the extended forecast for the 6th, 2 Saturdays from now. Wait, the 6th? Yeah, the 6th.
Yes.
It said sunny and a high of 62, but a low of 37.
Because
So
by the
like,
time, the fuck it's 9 o'clock down in Philly, it's gonna be
right.
in the 40s.
That's my concern. I'm going to be wearing short sleeve shirts because I don't really have long sleeve shirts. Do I bring my lighter weight spring fall jacket or do I bring my heavy winter jacket? My
I would
winter
bring the
jacket's
winter jacket. I
yeah,
would
my,
bring a
my winter
spring.
jacket's kind of bulky. Something else I just thought of I can do is got my Rangers hoodie, which I ordered a couple months ago, which I still haven't worn. Um, it's like, okay, so it's already getting cold, put the hoodie on, and then I can still put the jacket on over the hoodie.
I don't think you'll
That
need
might be
all
the
that
best
though.
option. What?
I don't think you'll need all that though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just, and then of course, my big concern might be some idiot Philadelphia fans going Rangers.
Yeah, yeah, that's the other problem too. Them fucking numbnuts.
Well, as soon as I told AJ I was going to wear my Yankees hat, and he goes, "Are you really?" I go, "No." There's no reason for people in Philly to get mad at seeing a Yankees hat because, I mean, first of all, that World Series was 15 years ago. Second of all, while the two teams do play every year now, they're still not divisional rivals. If it was a Mets hat, okay, I gotcha.
I'd
You'd
be
be
pushing it.
pissy about that. But Yankees hat, it's like, just fucking deal with it, man. So if I wear a hat that night, it'll probably be one of my other hats, which is not Yankees, and I can't think of any of my other hats being something that would piss off somebody in Philly. Not that I can really think of, but man.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of people from out of the country there too. They won't know. They won't care.
See, that's the thing too. Even just because it's like in Philly at Lincoln Financial Field and everything. I mean, this is still an event that draws people from all over. I mean, yeah, most of the people there will probably be people who live within driving distance,
Oh yeah.
of Philadelphia and everything. But yeah, there's going to be people there from all over the country, all over the world. So, oh my goodness, you'll never believe it. But
What?
after Oakland and NC State went to overtime, so are Oregon and Creighton.
Jesus. Huh? Close games. All right
Yeah.
then. I think we're gonna wrap up the show here. So next week,
Um,
fans. Wait, what?
yeah.
What?
I was gonna say I would apologize for Jeremy not being here, making
Nah.
it be another two-man podcast again, but he can speak for himself.
Yes, yes, yes. So next week, mm, we may or may not be on, but the following week we will definitely not be on because we will be at WrestleMania. But like I said, we will be taking videos and posting them on social media for all of you guys to review, watch, criticize, critique, laugh, and make fun of us. But it's all right
Yeah,
because we have
see,
fun doing it.
that's why I know we once upon a time, not so much lately, but once upon a time, we had the whole schedule about, oh, we take off the last week of the month.
Yes.
Yeah, I think next week we should probably make a concerted effort to be on since we won't be on the following week. So,
Yes, we could do that. We could do that.
and also because Jeremy has to apologize.
Yes. Such a slacker he is. But
He's an absolute slacker. Slacker extra slacker extraordinaire.
but I will use his ending. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Whoever's watching, thank you. Appreciate it as always. And like always,